Right. Okay. That's great. Now, do you have a favorite song off the album? One that you like in particular the best?
Well, the group that I fronted for 10 years, it was heavy rock.
Right.
Didn't sound like Van Halen, but it sounded kind of like Hot Dog in a Shake.
Okay.
That kind of a thing. So, yeah, I like that.
Right.
I like that a lot.
Okay.
And I like the production value off of Stand Up and Paradise.
Right.
And it's different things. I've worked in a lot of different genres, so I've come to appreciate, operatic things inside of rock and roll, as well as, really loud, bombastic stuff. That's, anything well done is worth listening to.
There's been some discussion in the past from both Billy and Steve about Dave trying to head in sort of a dance-oriented direction. Did you get any feel on that there was some sort of dance element that he wanted to incorporate into the album?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hence the song Stand Up, and, hence the overall in the album, there's kind of a driving. You mentioned the synthesizer bass.
Right.
And also, listening to the mixes through the wall of radio sound of Dave's, we were trying to find something that would inevitably move that aspect of the dancer. That would be, the disco sound, that the hip movements for females, that, kind of redundant hook hitting you over and over. But, I would agree with those comments that you heard, that there was an aspect to make it more dance.
Sure. And in terms of the song Damn Good, which was a departure for Dave, something different, beautiful acoustic ballad, has a blues flavor to it, very reflective, nostalgic type of tune. Steve sounded Zeppelin-esque on some of those guitars. What can you tell us about recording that particular tune?
The acoustic guitars, I remember getting the right flavor on the right acoustic guitar, and Steve had his favorite. Now, not everybody mics a stereo acoustic guitar or does it the same way I do. It turned out remarkably nice. We had discussions about the ambiances that would be used for the overall song, and I remember stating that, well, maybe we'll know exactly what it ought to be once the vocal is on, and, so within the mix, what to do. But like most acoustic possibilities, it could have been extremely dry. It could have been a lot wetter. It was not a departure, but it wasn't like we all haven't done that. It was real good, and I think Dave did a great job. I think he's the only one that probably didn't do a lot of different acoustic things.
Okay, yeah, that's very true. That's very true. In terms of the reflecting back on the finished product, handing it into the record company, what kind of feedback did you get?
The record company itself, I did not deal with.
Okay.
As far as that feedback.
Right.
An old friend from early recording days was the mastering engineer, Bernie Grunman. I called on him to master the album.
Okay.
He enjoyed it all.
Okay.
He loved it, as far as that goes. But, that's typically, I'm talking sonically.
Right.
What you're really asking about is the content and, how much continuity did they feel it had with the prior album and these kind of things, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I'm not privy to that. I don't know.
Did you get much visits to the studio from the record company or management or?
No.
No?
No. Manager, yes. Manager Pete was on site for most of the time.
Okay.
Well, at least throughout the mix stage.
Right.
I think he was on site pretty much for the other sessions too.
Okay.
But not to my knowledge. Maybe there's one visit from record companies.
Okay.
Again, I was focused on what I was focused on. There was one thing that did happen that was interesting, just a little byproduct story in there.
Right.
We were finishing up, I think, some of the last songs before it was time to start the mix. I had a gig for a commercial company, for a jingle company, that I had done very well for them. But this jingle that they were doing was over in Paris. And I, originally kind of broached the idea that I wanted to go, no, we got to stay on this, Dave would say. We really should stay on this because we got a great momentum going, and we got the schedule and the like. And then these people stayed on me, and they said, listen, if we could just get you there for one day of the weekend, that's all we need. So literally, I spoke with Dave and Steve, and they said, okay, okay, if you really want to, let's take a couple days break. And I flew out, I believe, Friday night late, arrived, did their session, got on a plane right away, and came back, and I forget, it was Monday afternoon or something like that. That worked out really well. And I was glad, I saw a real nice side of Dave and Steve.
Yeah.
Where they, just said, this is, you want to go do that, go ahead.
Okay, that's cool.
The time change must have been hellish for you back and forth in a weekend, right?
Yeah.
Boy, it really was. It really was on both sides.
Yeah.
It was crazy when I got there, and it was crazy when I got back again, too.
How long were you recording the album?
I don't know. I think I was on it, at least 2 months, maybe 3 months.
Okay.
But they had started some earlier recordings on a few songs before I came on board.
Okay.
In terms of the vibe in the studio, Dave's been known to have kind of setting the scene in a studio. He's been known to bring in sand and palm trees and different lighting and kind of creating sort of a homey atmosphere for him to record in. Did he do anything along those lines in your studio?
No, but we spoke about it. Because there's an artist that I worked with in South America, and I would bring in palm trees, and I remember him saying, "Oh yeah, I love that. I love to have like that nature type of feel." But the studios that we were in were very nice, and they weren't that clinically sterile. They were like warm, and did a good job of picking studios. Did he bring much artifacts or things in? I think one day, it was a scent of a candle or something like that.
Okay.
But what we did do quite a bit is, we talked about the importance to just kind of get your head away from it for a little bit.
Yeah.
So on lunch breaks, I had my saber and a mask set up, and I was, doing some work, parries back and forth, just kind of keep it staying loose. And Dave would be doing his martial arts, spinning and kicking and jumping up in the air. And people would come to visit. Before they go into the control room, they'd see us like out on the patio and go, "What is going on here? It's crazy."
That's great.
And while we were doing that, Steve was typically just buried inside notes. Figures, writing music, writing parts out. Like we all had our department.
Of course. You and Dave must have connected doing that kind of stuff. Dave loves that kind of stuff.
Oh, he does. I know. Yeah, we really did. Everybody has their beautiful shining points to them. For myself, what I bring to the table is I have a little bit of a spiritual aspect.
Okay.
I'm very musical as a singer, and as a mixer or engineer, I have that aspect to me. And the two of them, the entire project, had that exact same vibe. It had the exact same play around like this, be spiritual, know about the Akashic Records, know about different aspects of this, be able to discuss anything from the qualities of color to, how different physiologies interact with the mental state of mind, just all kinds of stuff. I remember we had some real good, engaging stories. I was always amazed by Steve's abilities. And I had worked with Yngwie and, some other really, really fine players. I liked being around somebody who was awake.
Yeah.
Steve was very awake and very cognizant of everything going on around him.
Yeah, he's an incredibly intelligent man. He really is. He lives and breathes music, and he has, beyond the guitar, he has just such an incredible overall musical sense. He's the guitarist that's beyond belief, but I don't know if it came from working with Zappa, but he has such a worldly manner when it comes to all elements of music that he has an unbelievable ear and a certain kind of touch that I guess is really unique to him. He has a quirkiness that has become a signature style, and it really goes all over the place. I don't know if you have followed his solo albums, but every single one is different from the next, and they really are a wild adventure. Every album he puts out is so crafted, and it's obvious that a lot of what came after in his solo career started on Skyscraper. I really believe, Steve was a young man when doing Skyscraper, and his ability to produce an album of that magnitude really seemed to cut his teeth as a producer and a person who recorded and made music from a production standpoint beyond just an incredible guitarist. It's obvious that the whole seed started right there.
Absolutely true. I have kept up with his career, and you're right. But there's one other thing that comes to mind for me when I listen to his new stuff. And this is when we were talking way back when I was producing Pia, that he would be the person in his little room in New York that just sat and woodshed things until it was exactly his style or to his satisfaction.
Right.
And what I've seen is that I believe he's carried that throughout his career. You know, many artists, as they reach a certain degree of artistry within their acts, whether it's voice or some instrument, they then get comfortable with it, and then they write material that utilizes it to show their great parts. But Steve has another aspect to it. He's continually learning.
Right.
The new stuff on the album, there's a certain percentage of it that he just taught himself to play.
It's incredible.
And he just realized,
Yeah, he has an incredible inner drive to honestly absorb everything around him. I don't know if you're aware, but on one of his albums, this is incredible, I think it's his maybe 93 or 94 album. The band is called Vai. The album has this unbelievable recording of his wife giving birth on it. I mean, it's unreal, and he incorporates it into the record, and it's his actual wife giving birth. And he's a wild man. He's an absolute wild man, and he's just, I don't know. I've never seen anybody like him. He just has an ear and a certain sensibility about him that is, everything he does is very Steve Vai. He just has that sort of vibe to it, and there's no other way to explain it other than the fact that it has that Vai stamp to it. Sex and Religion. That was the name of the album. It was from 1993. What an album that was. And the song is called Deep Down in the Pain. And my God, did he get deep down into that song. And he was obviously talking about his wife's birthing process, and he even had her recorded on there, which is mind-blowing in many ways.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
now,
that really is mind-blowing.
Did you go to any celebrations for the release or anything after the album was coming out, or were you a part of any of that?
Just a couple, or just one really that I remember. Do you remember when? Well, I don't know. Do you remember the release of the album?
Sure.
When David he climbed up the
Tower Records
Skyscraper.
Yeah.
Tower Records.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was there. I was there with them for that, and so I didn't get to go to too many other things. I headed back to Europe to do another 2 albums, and then in South America I was there. Then just continually staying booked. I didn't have a lot of time to just sit back and do nothing.
Sure.
But nonetheless, I remember Dave would tell us some great stories, which I can't tell you for a podcast.
Okay.
Some of the backstage Van Halen stories.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Did they curl your hair?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
They didn't. Actually, he prepared me for stuff that I would then do later on as a solo artist.
Oh, really? That's great.
You know, when you were talking about Steve Vai,
yeah.
You said the only way to explain him, I had a thought before, is that he's what you would call a multi-dimensional individual.
Absolutely.
Because while he's doing this, he's interpreting that. While he's interpreting that, he's performing this. So that's the one word that came to mind. And it's like being great at multitasking.
Yeah.
But it's not the same. Multitasking is busy work.
Yeah.
Actually doing creative planning and designing and then staying at the top of your game. Anyway, that just occurred to me about that.
Obviously, Skyscraper was a success. It sold over 2 million albums, had a top 10 hit single on it. What kind of impact did that have on your career? Did it give you a lot of cred, and did you get a lot of work off of doing Skyscraper?
Not that much.
Really?
Not that much, and it wasn't for lack of its success,
Right.
or its good calling card. I was booked after that album